clash.
Good morning. Rise and freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show on the For Liberty Network. Is anybody else excited that the weekend is almost here? Yeah. Well, baby Hazel's doing better. She's, on a rotation, a schedule, sleep-wise, that we can kind of work with. We get up at 4 a.m. anyway to do this show, but Stephanie does a really good job at hitting that nighttime feeding, diaper changing window. And I'm able to get enough rest so that we can do this, even though the newborn period is, it's a bit of a transition. We're loving little baby Hazel, though. It's a lot of fun having our little bundle of fun in our home. And then yesterday I sat down and said to myself, how different would my life be if I had to go and work an 8-hour-a-day job and then come home to my kids? It's just, I can't even fathom how difficult it must be for parents who are outside of the home, who don't get to spend this amount of time with their newborns. I mean, typically if you're the boss of your own company, if you're out of the house even, right, you still don't get to spend that time with them because there's no maternity leave for you. As somebody in my position, but I essentially get maternity leave. And I was reading an article by the Wall Street Journal talking about Google's new CEO blaming remote work policy for why they are behind on artificial intelligence. I thought to myself, what? I want to talk about remote work. I want to talk about two parents in the home and what that might yield, right? I want to talk a little bit about mental health. Maybe there's a little bit too much time you could possibly spend with people that you love. I don't know. I never felt that way. I love being around my family. I mean, everybody needs space now and again, but we are in the little kind of honeymoon period with the sweet little baby. So we're going to talk about remote work in the context of Google CEO's comments. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the work balance lifestyle before I move on to the big story today, which is the polls showing Kamala Harris ahead. I deem thee both fake and gay.
I don't know what's wrong with you young people. You think you just fell out of a coconut tree?
Yes, I did just fall out of a coconut tree.
You exist in the context of all in which you live and what came before you.
How dare you?
How dare you?
First of all, Kamala, I did not fall out of a coconut tree. It's true, like you said. However, I exist in the context of all which came before me. I mean, is that supposed to be deeply profound? I would really just love to hear a deeper explanation of Kamala Harris going into what has unburdened, or what is unburdened by what has been, or however it goes. Wouldn't you? Dad Bod Baboon says, my wife works from home. She needs to get out and go to a workplace with other people for reals. Oh, Dad Bod.
How dare you?
I'm sitting there like Dr. Evil typing. I can see Dad Bod Baboon typing this morning. Like Dr. Evil, you know what I mean? If you're just tuning the show and you haven't clicked the button yet, what are you doing? You got to click the like button. What are you doing? AP gets up so early every day to bring you awesome content, incredible guests. Today is Thirsty Thursday, which means the beautiful ladies of Liberty will be here, except no, they won't. Camelia Peterson has decided to back out of her obligations, and she said, no, I won't meet me in St. Louis, but she will meet you at the fair, the Missouri State Fair. She's there for the governor's breakfast this morning. Well, good for you, Camelia. Woo! Means I don't have a guest in that segment, which, who knows what could happen there. We'll find out. At 7:30 a.m. Central Time, Daniela Pensack will be here. And we're going to talk to her about the article that she shared with me from Newsweek, which was compelling, the online lives of young men, or it's titled, it's about the mental health of young men, the precarious online lives of young men. And I know a lot has changed with the internet since I was a child. The very first time I got a computer, I was 11 years old. So that would have been around 90, 91. And my uncle, who owned a computer shop at the time, could get me sweet deals on computer parts, and it was perfect for a young man. This was back when Windows 3.11 was still out, and I loved that interface. My uncle Bobby actually built my custom PC for me, and as a gift, brought it to me, put it in my bedroom all alone, in 1991. This was back when AOL, America Online, You've Got Mail, all that stuff was still popular, instant messenger. And the way that I could connect was in the initial days, 2400 baud modems. Before we had America Online, we used to dial up bulletin board systems. And it was all text-based, so CD space, DOS command directory, all that stuff. And so using those computers in the beginning, I felt like really gave me a jump ahead of my competition in terms of what I could do in school, educationally. So I struggle a little bit with, the idea of giving my daughter a tablet or access to technology in certain ways, because certainly I was a big consumer of technology. Man, that's what messed me up, right? Who knows? But I feel like there may be pathologizing mental health of young people online a little bit too much, because I did come of age with the growth of the internet, where we went from You've Got Mail to where I got a Ethernet connection in college. Maybe you're mature enough at that time, 16, 17, 18, or 19, 20, 21, those years that I spent on the internet. And yeah, that was where there was stuff where you could see snuff films and just, rampant pornography, and things were a little bit more freewheeling than they are today. But I still feel as if some of the mental health challenges that young people have today are analog to what we came of age with, because the internet was much more wild, much more rabid, much more insane. And you could still have the weird, creepy perverts who would be online trying to get access to you as a kid, the same as you can today. But it was much easier to share certain types of content back in the day, because there were no filters. The internet just didn't have filters. You wanted to put a website up with lots of videos of weird crap, you could put up anything, and nobody was going to dox you, shut you down, shut down your domain service. So it'll be interesting, because we'll have this contrasting POV: me, the geriatric millennial; Daniela Pensack, the eager young Zoomer. So we'll talk to her this morning at 8:30 a.m. Central Time, and I'll look forward to hearing from her. John in KC is back from vacation. We missed you, bud. Hope you had a good one. Man, I need a vacation. I keep thinking about scuba diving. Courtney says that Camelia's had a rough few weeks. She deserves a little time off to relax. Shut up. Back to the content mines with you, Camelia. Just kidding. It has been rough. Yes, we could all use a little vacation. Good morning, How 319. We've been waiting for you. Where have you been? I didn't want to start the show without you, so I've just been dithering. Another word from 1990s internet days. Dithering. When your GIF, does everybody remember when a GIF would dither? No? You don't know? Is that how old I am? Am I showing my age at this point? Subway calls an emergency meeting with franchisees as sales plummet. Who's eating at Subway these days? This house, we stand Jimmy John's. Yum. This is why you're fat. Italian or get the out. Yeah, so Subway going down, and I turn it around. Sugar, we're going down, eating Jimmy John's. Okay. This isn't real, fake and gay. Kamala Harris's campaign is not real. We're going to talk about the polls that have come out that are showing Kamala Harris in the lead, which I find to be quite fascinating, especially when you look at the methodology of some of these polls, because they show Kamala Harris in leading by like 3 or 4 points in like Democrats in districts that are Democrat plus 19. What? And they're reporting on those stories and those as if this is a poll. Kamala Harris is dominating. Thank you to Nancy this morning who unlocked the bonus content already. Yes, she did. She unlocked the bonus content for you. But that doesn't mean that you should stop donating to support the Wake Up America show. Am I right? Okay. Shut up. Shut up, Kamala. Don't laugh at me. Don't laugh at me, clown. We're going to talk this morning about all of the polls and that, but I wanted to show you this clip of, I just become more and more impressed with the young J.D. Vance. See, that young whippersnapper, J.D. Vance, when he got a question from a New York Times reporter about inflation. Watch how expertly the young Vance handled this question.
Sir, the New York Times. I wanted to ask you about the latest economic news from this morning, with inflation now being under 3%, the lowest rate since mid-2021. What is your sort of reaction to that news?
Well, I think the crowd reaction says it all. Look, when they say that inflation is down, they mean from a baseline where groceries are already 30% more expensive than they were when Donald Trump was president. And they're not saying it's coming down, they're just saying it's not going up as fast as it was 3 years ago. That is not a reputation or a record to brag on, that's a record to be ashamed of. Why did it take them so long to get inflation to where it is, and why are prices so high? It's because Kamala Harris failed to do her job.
So in karate, we have a move that we learn. It's a defensive move. Most people in the world are familiar with it. Actually, you probably know it. You've heard of it. It's a defensive move that we use in karate, and it's called a. Typically, it's done in what we call a back stance or kokutsudachi. And in this kokutsudachi, we do a chudan shutta uke, right? Chudan shutta uke. Chudan, which means middle, right? Upper is godan, chudan, gedan, lower is gedan. But in this defensive move, I'll never forget my sensei, Tai Lung, taught me the defensive move. And I can't remember exactly how I asked him the question back in my younger days of karate when I was first starting. Maybe I was still a white belt. I was asking about this chudan shutta uke, which we call a knife hand, but the world knows as a karate chop. And the knife hand, I said, well, this is a good defensive move. I'm like, how would we use this? Because it feels kind of awkward when you watch it. You say to yourself, how could this really be used defensively? And it can be used defensively for certain types of strikes. It's a bit of a specialized move. But what JD has done here is sort of a rhetorical chudan shutta uke. And that means rhetorical knife hand. And how he's performed this, right? So my sensei grabbed my arm and he says, show me your knife hand, right? So show me Sandafro, show me paint defense, right? And show me your chudan shutta uke, the knife hand, simple knife hand, right? Simple knife hand block, chudan shutta uke. But then he grabbed my arm and he goes, okay, now show it to me again. And he does the chudan shutta uke, the knife hand, to my throat. And it goes, wow. And it almost turned my lights off. I was, oh. And then he taught me every defensive move is also an attack. Every block in karate is also an attack. And it appears that J.D. Vance understands this concept from a rhetorical perspective, in that not only is he able to sort of defend himself, because the first rule of karate is that there is no first attack in karate. So if you watch our kata, which is like stylized movements that we use to train when we're all alone, then you'll see each kata begins with a block, but then goes into a series of strikes or defensive movers and strikes. J.D. Vance understands this concept. He does the chudan shutta uke, right? The knife hand block, right? The karate chop. And then he adds into it from the defense, it becomes an offense. Which I really respect and admire about his rhetorical style. And I like what I'm seeing and I'm hearing from him. And I wonder what you guys think about him. Send me a text, 573-319-1586. Again, 573-319-1586. Mommy, nice to see you, and nice to meet your friends from Russia, Mother Russia. Nice to have you here. We're always glad to have new friends tuning in to the Wake Up America show, and we hope that we'll earn your interest and you'll come back and join us regularly and be a regular guest on the show. The show streams live Mondays through Fridays from 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time. It's a 2-hour, 5-day-a-week liberty extravaganza. We believe in limited government, economic freedom, the primacy of the individual, and that's what we're all about. And sometimes we get there through different ways. We don't always agree on the tactics that we use for liberty, but most of the people who tend to hang out on the Wake Up America show are believers in individualism and liberty and limited government. So if that's your bag, baby, then Austin Peterson says, then that is your bag, baby. Welcome to the show. Glad to have you here. We're going to talk about Kamala Harris in just a few minutes and the polls with Joe Biden, but I think it bears a brief mention. Allegedly, and they're denying it, allegedly in the news is that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Tried to do a deal with Kamala Harris in order to get a job on her cabinet. Now, I think some people will be excited about that. Some people will be like, boo, right? But many of you would remember this clip of Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who was talking to Donald Trump the day after he was assassinated. And this leaked clip shows Donald Trump essentially having a similar conversation with Robert Kennedy. Let's listen to this and ruminate on it for a brief moment. Ruminate.
I would love you to do so, and I think it'll be so good for you and so big for you. And we're gonna win. We're gonna win. You know, we're way ahead of the guy. And you know, he's interesting. He was very nice, actually. He called me and he said, "How did you choose to move to the right?" You know, so I guess that's people see. You know, if I was looking straight up.
So he goes on to talk about the assassination, but he's talking about there potentially having a Robert F. Kennedy Jr. endorse him. And we'll talk about that. And I'll give you my thoughts here for the next couple of minutes. Urs Mommy over in Russia says they want to know, my Russian friends, they want to know why y'all haven't exercised your Second Amendment yet. That's a great question. We do. At least we have it. You know, you guys don't even have a Second Amendment. Your government treats you like serfs. So, you know, and as you can see what's happening in the United Kingdom, for example, you never want to give up your guns. The Second Amendment acts as a strong deterrent, and it has been used frequently in many ways in the United States. Take a look at the Battle of Athens as a prime example in the United States, when a local team of World War II veterans, just fresh back from the front, went and used their Second Amendment rights to overtake the local jail, throw out the town sheriff, grab the the ballots that had been stolen, and restore order to their small town. Kyle from Kenosha, perfect example of the Second Amendment being used in the United States today. Or another awesome example, perhaps you might take a look at the recent example of the Bundy Ranch, when Ammon Bundy and a group of his supporters actually pointed guns at feds in Utah over a standoff that occurred out there. So the American people are very proud of the gun ownership. Let's not forget that there are 2 guns for every American citizen. So when you say, oh, I haven't used your Second Amendment yet, remember, we do use it, but it's kind of like when you see the riots in the UK, for example, if you're not ready to completely overthrow your government, you have to be very careful about how you operate in terms of being a revolutionary or a rebel. But I would definitely suggest cleaning your own house up out there, because you know, if you don't, unless you don't believe in the concept of you know, voting for your representatives in a representative republic, right? You guys have a strong man, and you think that's the best way to do things. You know, we see things differently. We believe in a democratic republic, and so there's always got to be tension between Russia and the United States because of those different forms of government, and the idea that, you know, that you should govern according to the consent of the governed. That's kind of where we're coming from over here in the United States. So I hope that makes sense to you all. You should definitely check out the American Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, which is badass. All right, let's continue on. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. So he gets this potential. There's no offer that Donald Trump is making here. So let's revisit this. He says,
I would love you to do so, and I think it'll be so good for you and so big for you. And we're going to win. We're going to win. You know, we're way ahead of the guy. And you know, he's interesting. He was very nice.
That was back with
and he said,
Biden.
How did you choose to move to the right? You know, so I guess that's people see. You know, if I was looking straight up.
So Biden asked him if, you know, how did you choose to look at the right? You know, so great question. And I think that when it comes to Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s potential asking of Kamala Harris for a cabinet spot, it could be fake news. I mean, you don't see in there Trump offering RFK a cabinet spot. But I think that if Robert F. Kennedy Jr. were to drop out and endorse Donald Trump, it would be much better for him, because there are a lot of people who are Trump supporters who like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. So I think they'd kind of hail him as a hero, because he goes on all the shows that are important for right wingers, right? Talks to all the right wingers in order to sort of get inside of our clubs. So Robert F. Kennedy Jr., I think, would be accepted if he doesn't endorse Trump and he just runs a blowout campaign. And I think Trump supporters will just kind of look at him like a dweeb. you know. But if he endorses Kamala Harris, I think they'll think he's a bit of a turncoat because she, I think more than anybody, really stands opposed to the principles that he claims to espouse, that he claims to believe in, which I don't know. I don't fall for the flim flam, man. I know people love politicians and they love their leaders and they love, oh, we love our leadership and we love, typically people who are vying for power for me, and unless there are some very rare exceptions of people who vie for power or who have power, things like that I tend to have a high opinion of. It is very rare, very rare. And Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has to, not today, RFK, not today. Floby Tennyson says RFK sucks on 2A. I'm a hunter too. Get the out of here. Rights shouldn't be paywalled for the rich, i.e. tax stamp for suppressors and licensed high prices for full auto. Thank you, Floby. There you go. Oh my God. So this is, since you can't have Camellia today, how about this story on a Thirsty Thursday? Florida Representative Anna Paulina Luna speaks out. I love this headline. Speaks out after years-old footage of MAGA swimsuit goes viral. Oh my God. Florida Representative Anna Paulina Luna responded to years-old footage of the Trump-backing lawmaker dancing in a MAGA-themed swimsuit that resurfaced on Wednesday. Humana. The 35-year-old Politico once sported the suit in a 2016 video to show her support for Donald Trump before she began serving the House of Representatives at the start of last year. This is why I love the New York Post. Steffi right now will be like,
Do not come. Do not come.
and I'm like,
I'm going to come.
she said there are better things to do with your time than digging up modeling photos of me from almost a decade ago. The left is attempting to make this a thing, yet can't define a woman. Very low IQ behavior. Get over it. Well, we're going to get over it, all right. The GOP congressman who once served in the Air Force, badass, has been a strong supporter of Trump as he runs for the White House against Kamala Harris. I mean, look at this, guys. I mean, that's a woman right there, for the love of God. Democrats are jealous, yes, like Earth's mommy says. Wow. Okay. So before we get to the Kamala versus Trump story, real quick, want to remind you about the bonus content. Earth's mommy. Oh, yes, Earth's mommy's already unlocked it. What am I thinking? Duh. Stupid. So we're going to show the bonus content here soon enough. Quest Fanning says, anyone mention that it's our boy Robbie's birthday? Happy birthday, Robbie. Ahow319 says DJ AP is killing it. I appreciate that. But you know what, Ahow, I never got to see the story about your bad dining experience or something you were going to blow on us. I wanted to hear about it. Happy birthday, Robbie. We appreciate you, man. Thanks so much for helping make the Wake Up America shows for Liberty Network a success. You know, supporting little baby Hazel as well. We know you're a good friend. Oh, okay. So this is what I really wanted to start the show with, but it's taken me 27 minutes to get there. Eric Schmidt, the ex-Google CEO, walks back his claim. So this was a story that came out, and then in under 24 hours, this guy reversed it. Walks back his claim that Google is behind on AI because of remote work. Side note, if you haven't seen Twitter or /X's new AI image generator tool, Grok, it dropped yesterday. It's awesome. I used it to make today's thumbnail image, FYI. But anyways, so Eric Schmidt, ex-CEO and executive chairman at Google, walked back remarks in which he said his former company was losing the artificial intelligence race because of its remote work policies. Now, Schmidt said Wednesday to the Wall Street Journal, I misspoke about Google and their work hours. He says, I regret my error. This is a fascinating little story because it shows that Well, either he's wrong and he doesn't believe it, and he had a good turnabout, or he probably believes it, and the workers, when they heard it, got outraged and fought back against him. So it's an interesting question, this whole work-life balance when it comes to remote work, especially when it comes to tech problems or tech companies versus regular hands-on labor that you have to be there in person to make the sale or to complete whatever transaction it is, and you have to be present, be in person, no questions asked. But for all of the remote workers in not just Silicon Valley jobs, but say, for example, I can relate this back to myself. Then my schedule, as most of you might know or guess, is that I have a studio that I borrow that my good friend lets me use because there's nobody else in here this early in the morning. So thank you, Scott. Good to have friends. Kudos to Scott. He's at the Missouri from the Missouri Times. He's at the Missouri State Fair, I think, this morning. And I come into the studio in the morning, get everything set up, do all of this, lights and sound and camera and, all this stuff. And then I do my 2-hour show. And as soon as the 2-hour show is over, I head back home as soon as I can, cut the audio, do all that stuff. And I'm typically home on a really good day. I will be home at like 9:45 on a really good day, 9:45 a.m., right? So when I'm pulling out, sometimes I see people that are still going to work that are late for whatever reason and things like that. And so, my work day isn't done. Obviously, I still have a full day to work at my laptop at home. But I think that the reason why there was this pushback from the CEO is because people have realized after the pandemic on a deeper level the things that really matter in our lives. What are the things that really matter? Ian Howarth, my guest who was on yesterday, and I'm going to replay his interview. He didn't say this then, but in an interview that I had with Ian a few weeks ago, he was talking about, congratulations on the new baby. And he was saying, amidst all the dark and hateful posts and the rage and the trolling that goes on X, he says that, posting photographs of your daughter, your newborn, your child, it is a reminder of the things that really matter in this world. And more than almost anything I've seen in my life, maybe 9/11, I don't know if it had the impact that the pandemic did on people's psyche. It was a major psychic event, and this changed the American people's mindset about work-life balance. Indisputably, it certainly did mine. And I spent 2.5 years locked in a studio in the mornings by myself on the local radio, reporting on this. And then at the time, I was required to stay until noon that day, even if I didn't have any extra work, just because it was part of the routine. You just have to stay until noon. Doesn't matter what you do. You've got 3-4 hours sitting around kind of doing nothing, and you can't do anything else. It was, and you're sitting there thinking to yourself, gosh, think about how productive I could be if I was, doing something useful here. And so you start to ask yourself, what could I be doing with all of this extra time? I know a lot of people who are working in jobs, in corporate jobs, that have lots of time. And sometimes they'll have a busy season and then they're not needed so much, and you're sitting around. And yesterday, as I was sitting down on the couch and I'm feeding my daughter a bottle, and we've got this technique now for burping her that's really effective. I kind of hold her up by her chest a little bit and kind of pop her a little bit, kind of like, just kind of a gentle up and down motion. And then she she elongates her spine and she goes, and then I just tap just right above the butt in the lower spine, just kind of gently tap up. And she goes, and Steffi and I, we laugh so hard every time that happens, right? We got this beautiful little redheaded baby and she's just, right. So, or sometimes it's just, she'll spew a little bit of formula or breast milk and it'll be right. It's just hilarious. I can't imagine missing these moments. I can't imagine not being able to record these moments, capture these moments, be a part of my daughter's life. And I'm working. I'm working. I was like, I burp the baby, give her a little bit of food, then I hop back on the laptop and I'm doing my job here and all that stuff. And I can see with my third eye, with the eye in the center of my head, I can see you out there who are like me, many people who are parents who are living in this situation where they might be as lucky as Stephanie and I are, and Stephanie and I are fucking lucky. We are lucky. We are so lucky. Like, don't let me ever say that take this for granted with this lifestyle that Stephanie and I get to lead. I know not everybody can do this, but I get the pushback by remote workers at Google on Eric Schmidt's comments. Now, I don't believe that they're behind on AI because of remote workers. I think what's happening is that these huge billionaires are just, they're the biggest money grubbers in the world. I can't tell you how. I mean, I've worked at so many corporations. There was one business, one corporation that somebody that I'll tell you treated me right, treated me well, and I will never forget it. I will always talk nice about them. Two awesome Jewish dudes by the name of Ed and Alex Solomon at Net at Work in New York City on 8th Avenue around 36th Street or something like that. And I used to go there every day and do computer sales, and it was hell doing cold calls every single day to try and sell computers. One of the hardest jobs ever, but I loved it because they treated me like gold. Treated me like gold, treated me like a human being, right? Gave me bonuses even when I didn't ask. If the company did well for a quarter, they would give out bonuses to whole departments. That was actual money with zeros on the ends of the check. They would treat their employees like gold. I will never forget that. That doesn't happen. That's the only company I ever worked for that treated me like that. Never did I ever get that kind of treatment ever again in any business that I work for. It's like, here's your pizza party. Here's your little pizza party. Thanks for spending, 2.5 years locked in a closet right for us. And so here I am at home and I'm on my laptop and I'm doing a little job. I wrote my article yesterday to send out to Human Events, Jack Posobiec's magazine, and I wrote a really great piece. And then as soon as I was done and I had earned my money, I go back over to my beautiful little redheaded daughter and I lift her up and I give her a little burp and I give her a little food, a little kiss on the head, and we do a little tummy time and we're playing it out. And I'm thinking to myself, this is the life, baby. This is the life. And think about the times, little house on the prairie, right? And dad maybe had to be in the fields every day, but you could see him. He was there in the distance. And if little baby Hazel, right, with her little tresses or a little little hair all tied up, and a little bonnet on top of her head, wanted to run out to daddy in the fields and give him a hug or bring him a drink of water, she could do that, right? And he could maybe teach her to plow and all this kind of stuff happen. Think about it. We are returning to nature in a way with remote work. Nature is healing. I think our mental health will be healing. I think that we have to fight for our right to work from home, to work remote, so that those 3 or 4 hours a day that at many of these jobs that we're working at where there's nothing going on, we're being annoyed by our employees, we're paying gas money to drive to the downtown office, to sit in a gray, dull cubicle, to do nothing for, do a lot of stuff really, really, fast for 3 or 4 hours, and then have 3 or 4 hours of people just shooting the crap, not doing anything, wasting your time, wasting your energy, not being at home, then have to commute all the way back home. It's just, to me, listen, I'm a hardcore capitalist. I understand responsibilities and work ethic. I have an employee and I expect the best out of them because I pay them. I pay write the check every 2 weeks, and there's a responsibility there and all that. But you know what? I want to treat my employees like I got treated at Net at Work. And my employee works remotely and he's got a life and he busts his butt for me when he's busting his butt. And when he's got to go see his grandma in Nebraska, go see your grandma in Nebraska, dude. When you got to have that work-life balance. You got to have it, because we're not put on this earth just to slave away. That's right. We're not just put on this earth for that. We're put on this earth to make families and to build human connections with actual people and to spend time with our families and to nurture them and to grow them. We're going to have so much better outcomes. Is it so many better outcomes? So much better outcomes. So many better outcomes. Either one. when we are able to build healthy families in this society. And if we can't build healthy families on a work ethic that puts us in the mines for 8 hours a day, with half of that being completely wasted, with horrible commutes and bosses that are draining our life force away and our energy away, and our productive capacity. And we also have to have daycare for our kids because two parents got to work in this economy such as it is. So then neither parent can spend time with their kids, right? Neither parent can spend time with their kids. So it's like you got to send them to a daycare center when the daycare should be mom and dad and brother and sister, older brother and sister. That's what the daycare ideally should be. Right. Now, I understand people want to have careers. They want to be out of the home and having jobs. And some people really need that interaction and being there on a day-to-day basis. But some of us don't. Some of us don't need to hear your stupid jokes at the water cooler. Some of us don't need to pretend to like you. Not you, per se. The royal you, right? Not the people listening to the show. I like you. You're good people. But I mean, your coworkers, your annoying coworkers. Do you know what I'm talking about? You don't want to hear their stupid stories. You don't want to catch their colds. I don't want to catch your crap, right? You see people not washing their hands in the bathroom and stuff like that. I don't want to do it. I don't want to. And I don't have to, GD. I don't have to. I don't have to, so I won't. Now, like I said, not everybody can do it. Not everybody can get a remote job. It is, I guess, the 21st century of like luxurious for the middle class. It's a middle class luxury to work from home and to be able to remote work, do all that kind of stuff. Even more so, maybe even for digital nomads, people who just move around all over the place. Ahow319 says, do what you love and you will never work a day in your life. Sidewalk Close says, work to live, not live to work. And I got to say, it's true. And I love my work, guys. I mean, let's not split hairs here. I love getting up and spending time with you. I love being with you here. But I can't help but wonder what the impact is going to be of two parents in the home with my child being able to be a part of it. And what's it going to do for my mental health? Not just my child and thinking about her future, but selfishly, I can say that the impact, the blessing of feeling feeling this special time with my family, my wife who loves me. Do you realize, can I get really deeply personal for just a moment? And I promise you we'll talk about news and politics here in just a few minutes. We got plenty of time. Camille's not here. I'll talk about the Trump-Harris polls and all that kind of stuff. I can't explain to you how it feels to come home and to see my wife with her mane of red hair, especially when it's poofed out. Like sometimes she doesn't straighten it, right? So it's like this big poof of curls just exploding everywhere of like gorgeous, like red auburn hair. And she's smiling at me and she's got these beautiful freckles. And even more so, like when I first come home and it's like that, and she's holding the baby at the door and the dogs run out of the garage and are so excited to see me. And my daughter looks at me, and soon I know that she'll look at me with intent and will be smiling and will say, Dad, and will be excited to see me. And I cannot tell you I can't explain to you like on a visceral level how that feels to me and how much it benefits me personally. I know I feel like I've won the lottery. I think I have, right, to an extent, right? I've got 5.5 beautiful acres in central Missouri. I've got respect in my community. I've got a job that I love. I love hanging out with you guys, all of you guys in the chat that are watching here on Rumble, and probably some people on X who are a little bit more nameless because we don't see their comments, unfortunately, because Rumble Studio hasn't integrated with their chat function just yet. But one day we will see your comments, guys, in the top right hand for you portion of the screen. But there is truly something miraculous about the time spent at home with your family. And the feeling that you get is unlike anything else. So if you've been putting off having a family, here's your wake-up call. Okay. What else do we have? Should we talk about the news? Should we talk about politics? That's why you listen to this show, right? Would you click that like button if you haven't done that already? I'd be very grateful. Appreciate the support for the show. If today's your first time watching the Wake Up America show and you're enjoying today's content, I know I've gone off on a lot of tangents, but I'd love to have you be a regular guest. And this show streams live every Monday through Friday from 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time. It's a 2-hour It's a 2-hour show, and it's 5 days a week. So we'd love to have you be a regular guest. Please do come back and join us regularly if you haven't already. Saba over on X says, nice karate reference. Didn't know about it. Enjoyed it. Well, you're very welcome, Saba. Thanks so much for tuning in and listening. Bruce Birtwhistle says, hey, Austin, how about us Canadians support you? Good for you, Canada. Thank you. AP is living my dream, says Clementine. Well, thank you, Diog. And Sidewalk Closed nails it. AP, the American dream. It is. It is. It's freaking amazing. Let's not let the Democrats spoil it. What do you say, guys? Donald Trump leads Harris by 1 point, according to a new national poll. Former President Trump is leading Vice President Kamala Harris by 1 point nationally in the 2024 White House race, according to a new poll. Got to be careful about the whole national poll thing, because really what counts? It's the swing states, right? The Fox News survey released Wednesday showed Trump at 50% to 49% in the head-to-head race. When third-party candidates were included, Trump and Harris were tied at 45% support apiece. Come on, Bobby, get out of there. Get out of there. Independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy received 6% in the expanded poll, which was down from his 15% high in November of 2023, and then 10% backing in July. So it looks as if RFK Jr., and not just because of this poll, but in others as well, has been trending down. And this always happens as you get closer to an election. People get cold feet and the jitters about their third-party candidate. Didn't happen so much with Ross Perot, just because he was so good at building his movement and then holding on to it throughout his campaign. And he had enough money to really support it because he could, self-fund, which was very important. But Robert F. Kennedy Jr. doesn't have that exact same access to wealth that Ross Perot had. Although he does have fairly deep donors with fairly deep pockets. It's just not enough for a national campaign. So I do feel as if Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is wasting a lot of people's time. But everybody likes to have a protest vote, and that's where it is. So Trump won't choke against a weak Kamala Harris. Real quick, this Razor Fist clip got my attention. And Razor Fist, I don't know his real name, so I'm just going to call him Razor Fist. But he's got a pretty big following, and I've seen some of his YouTube videos. He dresses up all in leather like a badass. And I invited him on the Wake Up America show. I was hoping I could sneak him on today because I messaged him a couple hours ago. But fortunately, he's under the weather, so he can't make it. But he did say that he will be joining us live on the show soon. So if you're a Razor Fist fan, keep an eye out. We're going to have him on the program. But he's responding to this post. I hate calling them posts. I prefer calling them tweets. He's responding to this post by a Don Orca character who says, how did Trump fumble a failed assassination attempt? So he's showing this Arizona presidential poll that shows Kamala Harris at 44.4% and Donald Trump at 41.6%. So Razor Fist answers the question, how did the Trump campaign fumble the assassination attempt? He says they didn't. The polls changed their methodology to boost Trump and justify the coup against Biden, and then promptly changed back to the previous D+20 methodology once Kamala was chosen. So what does this mean? So polls are not written, and look, it's Liz over in the chat correctly identified. Polls are not written so much as to tell you what people think as much as they're designed to tell people what to think. Right? There's a big difference there. And in the Democrat methodology, and I was talking to my staffer about this yesterday, in the Democrat methodology, what they're doing is they're only showing you polls that are showing a heavy weight towards Democrat. They tend to only show you polls that are heavily weighted towards Democrat. What does that mean? Well, if you're not in politics, some people know what that means. I always go back and explain the basics just because not everybody is 20 years in politics like me, or some of you maybe even longer than myself. So what does that mean? That means that they pull these polls from heavily Democrat areas. So when I say Democrat weighted, there is a methodology to the poll, and they will show you like a D plus 19, a district, or this poll was heavily weighted towards Democrats, D plus 19, which is very, very heavy. What you want is to have a balance, like some Democrats, some Republicans, about equally weighted between the both of them in the state of Arizona, for example. So that is a better methodology for polls. And when you look at those polls, they don't show the same results as what the Democrats are showing you in the mainstream media polls, which are polls that will that are designed to manipulate you. Now, here's the thing: when I say that the polls are fake, right? It can be the case that a poll might be an effective analysis of a certain demographic or an area. It's not to say that all polls are completely bunk, but it's how the media and how politicians use the polls strategically, how they present the information to you, and how they ask the question in the first place matters so much, right? So if you can ask a question two different ways and get someone to answer two completely different ways. So if you ask a question in a certain way, you can prod people to give you a certain response, right? And this is done in highly effective methods when you're using this in, say, debate, like a professional debate or a high school debate or a college debate, what have you. Ask a question a certain way so that, they call it a loaded question, for example. I did things like this to Gary Johnson when I debated him in the presidential campaigns at debates around the country. I would ask a question to him that I knew if he answered it directly, he was busted. Right? So the only way to win is kind of like the game War Games with Matthew Broderick, is not to play, right? And in the sense of these polls, the only way to win is to ignore the polls, or at least if you want to read the polls, just remember to read the methodology. What questions do they ask? How do they ask them? To who? In what district? In what way? There's so many variables that can result in polls that show Kamala Harris beating Donald Trump or Donald Trump beating Kamala Harris. You want to understand the methodology of a poll before you move forward on it. Someone actually over on Rumble looks to be joining us for the very first time. Good morning, someone. It's great to see you. If today's your first time here on the show, welcome you. Everybody say welcome. We're glad to have you here, and we hope that you'll be a regular guest. Someone actually, if you wouldn't mind, click that follow button on the stream before you leave and follow the channel so you can come back and join us and find us easily, no problem, next time. We'll be glad to have you be a regular guest. Dynamic Diva might be the first time I've seen you as well. Hello, Diva. She's a diva. I always think that every diva has to sing that Lady Godiva song. In a Creole lady marmalade, get ya, yeah, yeah, da, da. That's what I think whenever I think diva. Dynamic Diva is here, I think, for the first time as well. She says, keep raising the kids, my love. Yes, we love children. Get ya, yeah, yeah, da, da. Creole lady marmalade. Okay. So I can no idea what the words were until one day I saw the video on a subtitle, Creole Lady Marmalade. Okay, Austin, get back to the news. And of course, please do click the like button and follow the channel, guys. If you'd like to send a text to the show, I haven't checked them yet this morning. I probably should. You can send a text at 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. JD Vance, Sidewalk Clothes texted in a message, said, at first when JD Vance was picked, I felt like he was just a guy. Well, he is just a guy and not necessarily qualified for vice president. The more I hear him talk, the more I appreciate the fact that he is just a guy. He's relatable and quick with his responses, doesn't let the medium bait him in. Thank you, Sidewalk. It's true. Gitchy, ya, lata. Creole Lady Marmalade. Okay, so have we learned enough about polls? Yes. Do we understand this concept of methodology? Yes. +3, +5, up, down, yes, no. Great. Well, then, what else do I have for you? So we've unlocked the bonus content. It's time for you guys to do it, to get it. I need to take a little break anyway. I thought that it would be good today to focus on a lesser known story from the news that you aren't going to hear anywhere else. It's a little bit of breaking news, especially for history buffs. The bonus content for those who are new and have never seen the show before, it's exactly what it sounds like. It is a little mini documentary that I produce every single day. And if people support the show through donations or in purchases at the merch shop, which is forlibertyshop.com, then if we raise at least $60 by the end of the show, then the audience has unlocked the bonus content and you get to view our awesome mini documentary for that day. And I've been doing this for about 3 months now, and it's been so successful. Every single time that I've produced a mini documentary, the audience has generously donated to the show through Rumble Rants, or they've made a purchase at forlibertyshop.com. And our friend, Erd's mommy, went over to the shop this morning and did a little Christmas shopping at forlibertyshop.com. So she unlocked the bonus content for you, which means you guys get to see it. I'll play that for you, and then I want you guys to see an interview that I did with my friend Ian Howarth from the UK, moved to the United States to be a software engineer, has now become a free speech advocate. We were talking a little bit yesterday about Bobby Kennedy Jr., as well as the campaign in the UK to extradite American citizens for violating their hate speech laws. Yes, in the United Kingdom, they are threatening to arrest American citizens if we violate their hate speech laws. I spoke to Ian Howarth about that yesterday. Enjoy the bonus content. Enjoy the interview with Ian. I'll be right back on the Wake Up America show on the For Liberty Network. Welcome to the Wake Up America show's bonus content. Let's look at a big news story you might not have heard. After thousands of years shrouded in mystery, it was discovered that Stonehenge's altar stone was brought all the way from Scotland. Stonehenge's altar stone, located at the center of the monument, has been traced to northeast Scotland, a distance of at least 750 kilometers. This remarkable discovery highlights the extraordinary efforts taken to transport this massive stone. Geologist Anthony Clark from Curtin University in Perth, Australia, expressed astonishment at the discovery, noting the incredulity of the research team. The exact method of transportation remains unknown, but sea travel is the most likely method, given evidence of sea journeys during that period. Stonehenge, built over approximately 1,500 years starting around 5,100 years ago, comprises an outer circle of sarsen stones and an inner ring of smaller bluestones. The distinction between sarsens and bluestones is based on their size and type of rock. According to geologist Richard Bevins from Aberystwyth University, the unique aspect of Stonehenge is the long-distance transportation of its stones. Most stone circles use materials found within a kilometer of their site. The sarsens at Stonehenge originate from the West Woods of Wiltshire, about 25 kilometers away. Almost all bluestones come from the Preseli Hills in Wales, approximately 280 kilometers from Stonehenge. Some suggest these stones were part of an older monument in Wales. The altar stone, however, did not match any known geology in Wales, as determined by Nick Pierce and his team at Aberystwyth University by the end of 2021. The 5-meter-long stone is partly covered by other stones and was placed around 4,500 years ago. Using advanced mining industry equipment, Clark analyzed samples of the altar stone, which is sandstone composed of eroded grains from ancient rocks. These grains offer a distinctive mix of ages, aiding in the identification process. Clark's analysis of zircon, apatite, and rutile minerals within the stone, using uranium to lead dating, showed that the stone's grains range from 500 million to 3 billion years old. This further confirmed its origins in northeast Scotland's Orcadian Basin. The nearest matching Old Red Sandstone to Stonehenge is near Inverness, 750 kilometers away, with the furthest in the Shetland Islands, up to 1,000 kilometers away. Sea transport seems the most plausible explanation for its journey. Glacial movement is unlikely to have transported the stone southward, as evidence indicates northward ice flow during the last glacial period. The reason for bringing the altar stone such a long distance remains a mystery. David Nash from the University of Brighton, whose team identified the sarsen's source, praises the rigor of Clark's team's work. He acknowledges the difficulty of pinpointing the exact source within the extensive Orcadian Basin.
Locating the precise origin of the altar stone is a significant challenge due to the vast area and depth of the Orcadian Basin. Nash compares this to the easier task of tracing the Sarsens, which had fewer potential sources. Genetic studies reveal that the original builders of Stonehenge were largely replaced by a new wave of migrants around 4,000 years ago. This population shift may be linked to a plague pandemic that devastated much of Europe's population. The discovery of the altar stone's origins provides a deeper understanding of Neolithic society's connectivity and the monumental effort involved in the construction of Stonehenge. The reasons behind such endeavors, however, remain a captivating enigma.
Ian, good morning and welcome to the show.
Good morning, Austin. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on the show. We appreciate you very much, Ian. We were talking a little bit about the Robert F. Kennedy Jr. question here during the break. Give us your take, big picture on him. Why do you think people are supporting him, and what's this all about?
Yeah, I think with Robert F. Kennedy Jr., it's more of a contrarian response of people are so fed up of, the douche versus turd sandwich thing we've been seeing for the last couple of election cycles. That someone like him is just sparks interest. I think that's really what it is. I think a lot of people out there are also one-issue voters on when it comes to vaccines. And for better or worse, he's been one of the loudest voices on vaccines. I think in many ways he's been spectacularly wrong and spectacularly misleading, and in many ways very damaging. That was my criticism of a lot of the broad anti-vaxxer stuff that came along after COVID-19, is that you can be anti the COVID vaccine because the COVID vaccine does not work. Like it quite obviously does not work. You've got the response of, thank God I was vaccinated because now I'm slightly less sick than I otherwise would have been from this completely non-dangerous virus, unless you're over 80 years old, obese, and you have comorbidities, things like that. But I think a lot of people, that sparked interest because he obviously went very hard after that. And he can, I think it's an important issue. But then they completely ignore other completely anti-conservative positions, like the fact he is probably going to be very anti-gun. He's trying to step back on that a little bit. And I think he's going to be an authoritarian in other issues too. And so I think people who are one-issue voters, it makes sense in terms of elevating someone as part of a broader conversation. But if we're talking about who is going to be leading the executive branch, doing it based on one issue while sacrificing every other issue, I think is really dangerous. Obviously, when it comes to Kamala Harris versus Donald Trump, you're going to have to make some sacrifices, right? Neither of them are perfect candidates. I think that's the least controversial thing I could say today. But in terms of who's more conservative, Donald Trump is obviously more conservative. Might not get every single box ticked for you, but he's going to get more boxes ticked than Kamala Harris ever will. And so it's kind of the same response I see when conservatives are coming out saying, I'm so conservative, I'm voting for Kamala Harris. Like, okay, so you're voting for communism because you think Donald Trump isn't conservative enough. Makes no sense. I think that's kind of the thought process when it comes to RFK.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people out there who have taken this position. Did you see David French says he's voting? He's voting for Kamala Harris to save conservatism from itself. What the hell? What is that?
Take enough money from New York Times, you will do anything.
A good point there. Yeah, he could be getting paid off. But I honestly think that Trump derangement syndrome is a very real disease for which there does not seem to be a vaccine, unfortunately. But if there were a vaccine, then it should be mandatory. Thank you to Courtney Conover joining us for the donation to help us get over the bonus content edge. We will play that content after our interview with Ian. Ian, this morning I've been playing this kind of like cheeky clip that tells the true story of the founding fathers fighting against the British as Liberty Jedi and Sith using lightsabers, and it's all been a lot of fun. But it was very much inspired by a lot of recent conservative and libertarian angst that we Americans are feeling from our friends, quote unquote, across the pond who are threatening to arrest Americans, Ian, if we violate the UK's speech law. I mean, literally threatening violence, meaning extraditing us violently from the United States to the UK if we violate their speech laws. Now, I notice, Ian, you have a bit of an accent, so I wonder where you stand on this issue. What they're going to do to you is what they did to the January 6ers times 10. I mean, the UK government has been clamoring for an opportunity to clamp down on the political opponents of the UK government, and now they've got the opportunity to do so. And I imagine that a lot of these people who were involved in the UK protests and riots are going to go to gulags here very soon. But Ian, I've got a two-part question for you on this one. One, are things like this the reason that you left? And two, isn't it a problem that if people who believe what you believe leave the UK, that it's only going to get worse?
Yeah, I mean, this isn't the reason I left, because I left to go work in software engineering. So it was primarily a matter of just opportunities here were better. It's certainly a reason I will never go back to live there, because I think once you've experienced actual freedom, you can't go back, right? It's something that you couldn't imagine leaving. You know, I love visiting England. I have family and friends there and love to go back. But there's a huge difference between visiting somewhere as a tourist and living there. And I think the kind of freedoms you have here don't compare to anywhere else. Like freedom in America is really incomparable to the lack of freedom in Europe we're seeing. But in terms of like where this is going, I think a lot of this does hinge on people leaving, but it's also the right people standing up. A lot of this, I think a lot of people incorrectly blame individuals for this kind of problem, when really this is a failure of leadership. This is a failure of conservative leadership in the UK. And I think my criticism has been for a long time that people like Tommy Robinson, for example, Americans don't really know who he is. Let me tell you, he is a piece of crap. He's a terrible human being. He was a leader of a white supremacist group in the United Kingdom for a long time. He intentionally fuels violence and fuels hatred, fuels rioting, all this kind of thing. And often from Spain or other holiday places that he's going, he intentionally tries to get arrested and then plays victim. He's a bad character. But the problem is with someone like Tommy Robinson, he didn't just erupt in a vacuum. He is a result of fecklessness and weakness on the broader conservative side, who have just stood back and let this conversation be taken over by someone like Tommy Robinson. So if you're someone like me who doesn't like Tommy Robinson, but you're not speaking out against attacks on free speech, attacks on Western culture, then you don't really have a leg to stand on, because you have completely abandoned this debate to the worst people. In the same way that moderate leftists in England or classical liberals have completely ignored the defense of Western culture, they are to blame for the radicalism on the left. And I think a lot of conservatives in the UK, specifically conservative leaders, I mean, they had conservative power in the UK for well over a decade. And what did they do with it? Nothing, absolutely nothing. What they did is they slowly eroded the image of what it is to be conservative, even British conservatism, which is nothing like American conservatism. And then they handed power to the Labour Party, and goodness knows how long they'll have it for. And look what has happened in just a few short weeks. And so I think a lot of this, individuals, I completely understand if you're an individual person leaving for a better life in you and your family. I think everyone should do that if they're able to. But I think a lot of this, I point the finger squarely at leaders who have failed for decades to stand up for what is right and to say the difficult thing, because it's difficult, it's uncomfortable. But if you're not willing to say the truth in a position of leadership, you do not deserve the title of leader.
Ian, is one of the solutions to this what Donald Trump is proposing here in the United States, mass deportation?
I think it's going to be part of it. I think mass deportation is one of those things that sounds so ideal, right? If you could just click your finger, it's like, I want to ban gun violence. So I'm just going to click my fingers and ban guns, right? That's the policy the left love to push. How you actually do that is a very difficult thing. Like, how do we deport millions of people? Well, I think one thing we have to do is actually be trying to focus the idea of who we are deporting. I don't think we should necessarily be deporting people who have lived here for years, who have been working hard and paying taxes and all those kind of things, because I think they've come here for the American dream and they're assimilating to American culture, which is to contribute and to work hard for you and your family and to contribute to society. I think a big problem for me is the people who are coming here because they want to take advantage of the welfare state, which is growing at ridiculous rates in the United States. They're coming here because they want to engage in crime. They're coming here and then immediately engaging in things like rape and murder. Those are the people we should be deporting immediately. And then we should be having a broader conversation about, well, if you skipped the line and you arrived, say, 6 months ago, I think you should be deported. If you've been here for decades, I don't think you should be, because I think a lot of this, there is a humanitarian level to this, right? Where we should have empathy for people and understand that there are broad differences within the so-called illegal immigrant community, where we love to focus on the evil side of it, you know, the murderers, the rapists, the drug dealers, etc. But there are plenty of other people who just want to be left alone and work hard and don't want to take anything from the government. So I think a lot of this should be acknowledging that illegal immigration is illegal. We should also be acknowledging that we should be bringing people here who want to be Americans, who want to contribute to America and want to find their own American dream. We should not be bringing people here who want to be handed everything, squeeze everything from America that they possibly can, and then turn it into a third world country at the same time. I think that's the differentiation for me.
Ian, these are great POVs. What are you working on these days, Ian? And where can we find out what you're up to these days?
Yeah, so obviously I'm talking a lot about anti-Semitism, what's going on in the Middle East. It's really my central concern with the election. I think a lot of people are talking about other things that do matter, like inflation, spending. But for me, when it comes to the executive branch, it's all about foreign policy. So that's been my focus for the next couple of months, is trying to really argue why Donald Trump is the obvious choice. If you want more of the world on fire, vote for Kamala Harris. And that's pretty much the way I can sum that up. But I'm doing a lot of writing for my syndicated column and also my Substack. And yeah, if you check me out on all social media, IGHAWORTH, you can find everything I put out there.
Great stuff, Ian, as usual. Sorry about all the times that I messed up the timing to get you on here on the show, Ian, but I love reading your stuff. Keep up the good work online, and thanks for standing up for freedom. We appreciate you as always. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks very much.
Expanse of time, a year might seem like a mere moment, but oh, what a year it's been. In September 2022, Austin and Stephanie Peterson embarked on a journey to wake up America. They began humbly, with just 20 souls tuning in, learning, listening, and though challenges arose, like the looming shadow of YouTube demonetization, their spirit never waned. And now, thanks to you, thousands rise with the sun to join them, to listen, to engage, to be a part of a community. So here's to you, and to wake up America, for memories shared, for friends made, for the journey ahead, and for never, ever forgetting to rise and freedom. Happy anniversary.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message. Believe me, Austin Peterson is the best. He's got the greatest Wake Up America show I've ever seen. Whenever I tune in the mornings and watch the live stream, let me tell you, he has got the absolute best content. I love his guests. It's just a total blast to watch, and I highly endorse and recommend the Wake Up America show. It's terrific, believe me.
Is the outdoor of your home about as exciting as a library? Then spice it up and unbore your space with our custom metal signs. Crafted with love and a bit of libertarian magic, you can customize your own metal sign at ap4libertyshop.com. So head to ap4libertyshop.com, customize your own metal sign today.
Welcome to a world of vocal discovery at Peterson Voice Studio. I'm Justin Peterson, here to guide your musical journey. Envision a place where your voice reaches new heights, where every note tells a story. We embrace all singers, from the enthusiastic shower vocalists to aspiring stars, ensuring each voice finds its unique rhythm and tone. Are you ready to elevate your voice? Visit PetersonVoiceStudio.com and sign up for remote lessons tailored just for you. Let's begin this melodious journey together.
Tired of spending your hard-earned money on woke corporations that don't share your pro-freedom values? Fed up with sipping liberal lattes and progressive cappuccinos? Introducing Founding Flavors from AP4Liberty Shop. Get your day started with Washington's Revolutionary Roast. As robust and principled as the man himself, this blend is the shot of energy heard round the world. Or maybe you want to taste the fervor of freedom with Adams's Patriotic Perk. It's as dynamic and balanced as the U.S. Constitution, sure to awaken your spirit of liberty. For the aficionados potatoes, we've got the Jeffersonian Java, a complex mix of flavors that speaks volumes about your refined tastes. And don't forget Betsy's Liberty Lullaby, our decaf option, crafted with the same care and dedication Betsy Ross put into our Star-Spangled Banner. This blend lets you enjoy the taste of freedom anytime without losing sleep. No woke beans here, folks. Just pure, patriotic, pro-freedom flavors brewed with love for liberty. So why compromise your principles for a cup of coffee? Stand up for your values, perk up your patriotism, and start your day the American way. Get your founding flavors at apforlibertyshop.com. Welcome to the Wake Up America Show's bonus content. Let's look at a big news story you might not have heard. After thousands of years shrouded in mystery, it was discovered that Stonehenge's altar stone was brought all the way from Scotland. Stonehenge's altar stone, located at the center of the monument, has been traced to northeast Scotland, a distance of at least 750 kilometers. This remarkable discovery highlights the extraordinary efforts taken to transport this massive stone. Geologist Anthony Clark from Curtin University in Perth, Australia, expressed astonishment at the discovery, noting the incredulity of the research team. The exact method of transportation remains unknown, but sea travel is the most likely method, given evidence of sea journeys during that period. Stonehenge, built over approximately 1,500 years starting around 5,100 years ago, comprises an outer circle of sarsen stones and an inner ring of smaller bluestones. The distinction between sarsens and bluestones is based on their size and type of rock. According to geologist Richard Bevins from Aberystwyth University, the unique aspect of Stonehenge is the long-distance transportation of its stones. Most stone circles use materials found within a kilometer of their site. The sarsens at Stonehenge originate from the West Woods of Wiltshire, about 25 kilometers away. Almost all bluestones come from the Preseli Hills in Wales, approximately 280 kilometers from Stonehenge. Some suggest these stones were part of an older monument in Wales. The altar stone, however, did not match any known geology in Wales, as determined by Nick Pierce and his team at Aberystwyth University by the end of 2021. The 5-meter-long stone is partly covered by other stones and was placed around 4,500 years ago. Using advanced mining industry equipment, Clark analyzed samples of the altar stone, which is sandstone composed of eroded grains from ancient rocks. These grains offer a distinctive mix of ages, aiding in the identification process. Clark's analysis of zircon, apatite, and rutile minerals within the stone, using uranium to lead dating, showed that the stone's grains range from 500 million to 3 billion years old. This further confirmed its origins in northeast Scotland's Orcadian Basin. The nearest matching Old Red Sandstone to Stonehenge is near Inverness, 750 kilometers away, with the furthest in the Shetland Islands, up to 1,000 kilometers away. Sea transport seems the most plausible explanation for its journey. Glacial movement is unlikely to have transported the stone southward, as evidence indicates northward ice flow during the last glacial period. The reason for bringing the altar stone such a long distance remains a mystery. David Nash from the University of Brighton, whose team identified the sarsen's source, praises the rigor of Clark's team's work. He acknowledges the difficulty of pinpointing the exact source within the extensive Orcadian Basin. Locating the precise origin of the altar stone is a significant challenge due to the vast area and depth of the Orcadian Basin. Nash compares this to the easier task of tracing the sarsens, which had fewer potential sources. Genetic studies reveal that the original builders of Stonehenge were largely replaced by a new wave of migrants around 4,000 years ago. This population shift may be linked to a plague pandemic that devastated much of Europe's population. The discovery of the altar stone's origins provides a deeper understanding of Neolithic society's connectivity and the monumental effort involved in the construction of Stonehenge. The reasons behind such endeavors, however, remain a captivating enigma.
Welcome back to the Wake Up America show. Well, I would say welcome back, but it's all the Wake Up America show. Thanks for tuning in this morning. It's time to Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. We're glad and thankful to have you joining us here live on the For Liberty Network. We're all about that. Economic freedom and personal liberty, that is. So if you're into that as well, click the like button or follow as well. If it's your first time watching the Wake Up America show and you like this content, we'd love to have you be a regular guest. It's Mondays through Fridays from 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time. Mondays through Fridays, 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time, 2-hour live extravaganza. Okay? Great. Southcott just blew my mind over in the chat. He says, why are you using kilometers in Stonehenge documentary? The UK uses miles. Got me there. I'm American. What the F is a kilometer, right? Thanks so much for joining us, too. And a great comment there, Southcott. We appreciate you very much. Do you guys like those mini documentaries? Well, you ought to. You've been paying for them for the last 3 months since I started that process. Thank you to everyone, including Donna, Er's mommy, for unlocking it. I know she took off, but we appreciated her unlocking that bonus content for everybody. We're going to have Daniela Pensack here in a little bit less than 10 minutes. But I thought that interview with Ian Howarth was really good, especially when I saw this story today. A 61-year-old man gets an 18-month 18-month prison sentence for chanting, "Who the F is Allah?" He also reportedly told police officers outside Downing Street, "You're not English anymore." A 61-year-old man in the UK was jailed for 18 months for chanting, "Who the F is Allah?" and telling the cops, "You're not English anymore." Well, might I just say to you, old man, God bless you, sir. Yeah, the sentence handed out to David Spring is a shocking example of how low the bar has now been set in terms of free speech in response to the rioting that occurred after the murder of 3 girls in Southport last month. Spring had attended a demonstration of around 700 people in London on July 31st, which turned disorderly. Police body cam footage showed Spring calling police officers "hoonts," which is British for, I'll let you just figure it out.
How dare you?
Hoonts. He was also reportedly making hostile gestures and joining in with chants of "Who the F is Allah?" and "You're not English anymore." Oh, no. Oh. Who the F is Allah when you're not English anymore? Now, Spring's behavior might be considered offensive or perhaps unruly, but he's going to spend a year and a half in jail for saying mean words. And it just goes to show how far the United Kingdom has slipped into extreme authoritarianism in just
support, my respect, and my gun.
I think that at the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than well, that's the fashionable word these days, I guess. A conservative is no longer just that. He's a libertarian and always has been.
Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything.
What is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and regulation.
Well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. This is the issue. issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
The conservative, so-called, is the one that says less government. Get off my back, get out of my pocket, and let me have more control of my own destiny.
Would happen if I had to pick up the phone, call 911 for one of my family members or one of my neighbors? What would I do if no one was on the other end to respond? What if there was no 911? You can be a part of the solution.
Anybody can be a firefighter. Male, female, younger, older.
We have school teachers. We have leaders in business.
Is me, you, anyone that wants to be.
There is no typical firefighter.
Do you hate the deep state? Do you reject the Antichrist in all his ways? Do you believe that aliens controlled LBJ to assassinate John F. Kennedy? Did you know that the shot can put chemicals in you that will make you more sensitive to 5G? Do you love America? Do you want more freedom? Do you like smoking hot red-headed libertarians? Then the AP for Liberty shop is for you! Check out all the awesome new merch and have a happy new year! Fight the deep state, reject the Antichrist! Visit AP for Liberty shop and get your patriotic merchandise now, or the deep state wins!
Welcome back to the Wake Up America show. I'm your host, Austin Peterson. It's time to rise and freedom. Hope you're having a wonderful day today. We've got a lot of great show content left for you to go. We're still waiting on Daniela Pensack. I did send her the Zoom link to her email, and I know she listens to the show, and I know she promoted it this morning, but I'm not seeing Daniela Pensack waiting in the waiting room. So that means that I have to dither, hither, tither, and jump. Do a little tap dancing. Maybe I'll just go ahead and share with you the article that we're going to talk about when she arrives here. I'm sure will be in a couple of minutes. Oh, there she is. The precarious online lives of young men. As the new school year is upon us, parents are worried about their children's mental health, and they should be. The latest CDC data from the ongoing study on youth's well-being finds high rates of helplessness, suicidal ideas, bullying, and among other forms of violence. For girls, the rates are often higher, but boys are far less likely to seek help when they need it and are more likely to take out their problems on others. Joining us now to discuss is the lovely Daniela Pensack, all the way from the West Coast. Good morning, Daniela. Thanks for getting up early.
Good morning, Austin. I'm glad to be on yet again.
Yes, glad to have you here. I like that you picked this story, Daniela, and I'm really glad to see that you're concerned about the mental health of young boys. It's hard for me to speak to the problems faced by young girls. Obviously, I can speak to the problems of young boys. And I grew up in a time when the internet was even less controlled and regulated than it is now. You know, I had the internet in my house. I was able to access, the creepiest, weirdest websites that you could imagine that nowadays would get taken down in like 28 to 40 hours. You can still find a lot of that content, but you really have to search these days. And nobody was thinking about how that would impact my mental health. Maybe, looking at me and how I am today is a bad example for what that is. But I'm curious, why did you choose this story? You seem to be centered and focused around the mental health of young men, and young women, at least from what I see. Why did you choose this story, I guess, is my first question.
Well, I mean, I would say it's a very pressing issue right now, especially since, and the reason why I did also choose a story is because I do focus a lot on internet culture. And I figured, well, this story touches quite a bit on internet culture and how much it affects the youth today. And it's such a important part of American culture, the development of American culture specifically. So I figured it would be very important to discuss, especially since young men and young women, but particularly young men, are the future of our nation, and seeing that their mental health is just declining severely is something to talk about. And, you see all these politicians talk about how mental health is a major talking point, but I don't think they're really getting to the issue, which is largely, I would say, online spaces. And what I found interesting how the article refers to that.
I watched a speech that was given by Abigail Schreier, who talks about this issue a lot. And she was quoted as saying something about how she expected when she first started doing research on mental health that she would see incredible results because there is so much of a focus on mental health today. There's so much concentration on it. There's so many mental health counselors. There's so many opportunities to get therapy. My wife is one. She works for BetterHelp and some of these online groups. But what Abigail Schreier found was shocking, that despite the fact that we have focused on mental health almost to the extreme, that the outcomes have actually been worse than before we really focused or stigmatized on it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I would agree with that specifically because it seems like we clinicalize almost everything. And I talk about this on my social media as well, is that it seems like we do clinicalize so much, and it is a business that these people have, and so they're trying to perpetuate the issue. In my opinion, there are solutions that can be found in it, but they do try to perpetuate the opinion to retain a consumer or maintain a consumer base, right? But also, I just don't think they're really getting to the heart of the issue. And I don't know if you already said this, Austin, but as that article pointed out, is that a lot of these young men specifically do not seek help. And so they seek help in online space, which I don't think is necessarily wrong, but it can be detrimental to the overall political culture of the nation. And that being said, I don't think that the business of psychology is also it's very lucrative, I would say, but I just don't think it's very helpful in shaping or developing the young minds of the nation in a healthy way. So you do have all these girls which do seek help more often, also end up being, I think, this coddled socially, and they also clinicalize every single little thing. I mean, how many people do you see try to term their ex or someone they know as a narcissist? I'm sure narcissism, I guess, technically is rising, but at that point, like, everyone's a narcissist. But they treat every other or every social interaction or every human interaction that could be a little quirky or off as mentally ill, right? Or somehow severely maladaptive. It could just be a normal interaction. I mean, everyone's a little wacky. So you do have this severe polarization between girls seeking more help and boys not seeking help at all and going to more maladaptive spaces online. And there's just not a balance being reached right now.
I want to talk about the maladaptive spaces online. We're going to get to that. I noticed you took a poke at the Groypers and Fuentes on your Instagram because Tucker Carlson refused to name him in discussing January 7th and people who may or may not be feds. This is now sort of blown up. We'll talk about that in a couple of minutes. Let's talk about something that actually matters to some extent, which is that the Surgeon General has come out with a solution. And in this article, it claims that the Surgeon General wants to put a warning label on social media. They've done it. They're going to solve the problem, Daniela,
right,
of the radicalization of young people online and the mental health crisis by putting a warning label on it. What do you think about this government solution?
Yeah, I think it's ridiculous because of one of the main reasons also that I forgot to mention, that I think that these young men are afraid to seek help in public areas or in real life spaces, and they go online, is because the male psyche, it seems like to me, or the male behavior is being so heavily regulated in public life that they don't feel like they can actually act like themselves, right? And so what they do is that they go to these private spaces, these spaces that are removed from the social world, so they feel like they can be themselves, and so they're not perpetually longhoused in the public social world. And
define
what you get,
define longhouse, Daniela.
I guess
when your own show starts this
then I'll
fall,
use those terms.
then you can use those terms and assume your audience knows exactly what you're talking about. But define your terms.
I guess I'll put it in a way that I get most people can understand. It's where you have specifically male behaviors being heavily regulated by the social sphere. And usually it's characterized as women controlling men or women trying to control male behaviors that could be misconstrued as socially destructive when it really isn't. And so that's what I mean when I use that term, especially in this context. But that being said, these guys, these young men, it seems like, and you see this all along in public school ever since like the first few grades of public school onward, even to the workplace, men are being heavily controlled in many of these social spaces. So they don't even seek help. So they go into these online spaces where, again, it's not necessarily wrong. And the Surgeon General and how this article articulated that these spaces are highly misogynistic and anti-democratic. And so this article tried to delineate, especially the anti-democracy angle, and trying to use that. It's published during election season, whatever. But that being said, some of these spaces they can proliferate really, edgy ideas, and that's beside the point. But what I'm more concerned about is the professional grifters that are utilizing these spaces to their advantage, like Andrew Tate or Nick Fuentes types, if you know what I'm saying. Like especially people like Andrew Tate, where they tried to make it a lucrative job for themselves to prey upon these young men that, for the most part, are generally helpless. They don't know how to interact in the social world in a way which they can feel like they can be themselves, in a productive manner. So they'll try to give money to these professional grifters, or they want to follow particular thought leaders, which I don't think are providing any real benefit or value to their lives. And so that's the main issue that you see happening.
This is interesting. We're speaking to Daniela Pensack this morning on the Wake Up America show. Don't forget to click the like button and follow the channel if it's your first time watching the show. We're talking about an article that came out in Newsweek that says the precarious online lives of young men. I mean, you could understand, though, Daniela, why these young men would be attracted to men like Andrew Tate or Nick Fuentes and others, because let's be honest, the leadership or the type of values, men with values that they could look up to or be led by is very, very few. There are very few men who are like strong, sophisticated, intelligent, capable men that are even willing to stand up and be a leader, right? There really isn't a lot of incentive in our society, Daniela, for good men to step up and take leadership roles, because society chews up good people and destroys them by placing them into, Kafkaesque traps, or the dialectic is used against them to prevent them from accomplishing their goal, because by acting morally, by acting virtuously, they are undercut by the men in society who pretend to be virtuous or who claim to be the moral arbiters of society, who are willing to stop at nothing and to commit evil acts or to tell lies or to spin lies with the truth more often, and to take those positions of power and manipulate young men. So good, moral, virtuous men are at something of a disadvantage in our society, are they not?
Well, yes, you're just describing the human condition, I would say. Welcome to planet Earth. Yes, most major human organizations are just going to take advantage of the good. The good die young. I agree with all that. That's truly is unfortunate, and it is sad to see, especially now. And I think a lot of the political polarization, the gender polarization, we're also seeing in the United States and all over the world, I suppose, is because of these anonymous online spaces. They're not so anonymous anymore, but a lot of them are private and secluded and away from social attraction. And so because of this, I think people are also, especially young men and young women, are more susceptible to thought leaders, grifters, people who want to utilize their weaknesses for their personal benefit. They're just snake oil salesmen. It's not a phenomenon we haven't seen. However, I do think it's happening now at a greater scale than it has in the past, because we're just so socially isolated. I mean, I'm sure Austin, your wife, works in that field, so she's aware of this as well, or you've heard of this, where people are more socially isolated than ever before, and that's why I think we are having a lot of these so-called mental illnesses come about, or these maladaptive behaviors. And so I'm not surprised. We don't have any good leaders, especially for young men. But it does take a certain amount of real life experience and intellect to really differentiate from grifters to real leaders.
Yes, it
And
does. It
that's
is
just,
hard. It
yeah.
is hard. For the average mind, and most people are average, and then half of them are dumber than that. Um, for most people, it is very difficult to tell the good guys from the bad guys. It is so difficult because most of the guys who are bad guys are good at portraying themselves as good guys. And they manage to this is the best tactic is to take a simple fact, a grain of truth, a kernel of truth, and spin a web of lies around that truth so that you can always Mott and Bailey fallacy your way back to that defensible position. If you are constantly making predictions of which, you're the odds of the chances that you're going to be right are 50-50, which is like anything else in life. Like anybody can make predictions that end in 50-50. And if you take those predictions and say, oh, well, here's my true prediction that I made, and then spin all of the web of lies around that, and say, and then you can always fall back and say, well, look, I predicted blah, 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 blah happened, and therefore you should look at me as an authority. Because the human condition, as we're talking about, Daniela, is to focus on the hits and ignore the misses. This is, for example, very popular with faith healers and for
Yes.
people who run other kinds of scams, because grifting and scamming is not just exclusively a political thing, although it's the biggest grift and scam there is. But it's easier to look at it from outside of the bubble. So you could consider examples like faith healers or people, for example, who run flim-flam operations. They will take a truth and then they will build around a web of lies around it. And then what people will do is they will focus on the times that something worked and they will ignore all the misses. You know why, Daniela? Because people want to believe.
Yes.
People want
Takes faith.
something to believe in. And so they look around and when they see the simps of Western society, when they see the betas of Western society, they look at someone like Andrew Tate, who's a kickboxer who could probably beat your ass, right? Who could kick a lot of people's asses physically, and they associate that physical strength with a mental strength, which let's not mince words here. It does take a certain amount of mental strength to build up your physical condition, right? And to build up wealth, right? So people look at that and then they forget it's called like the forest for the trees, missing the forest for the trees, right? And they forget that there are other pillars of masculinity. There are other pillars of manhood that are missing in these spaces, that they just, because they don't see it or they don't want to see it. Because let's be honest, Daniela, when people really have to confront the problems that they're facing, they don't want to, because typically the problems generate with themselves. Right.
Yeah.
And what these online communities do, Daniela, is they tell them that their problems are caused by someone else.
Exactly.
The Jews, right?
Yeah.
The capitalists, the bourgeoisie, right? You're not a you're not a loser because of the decisions you've made in your life. You're a decision because the evil corporations, man, they're taking over, man. And there's a right-wing equivalent of that, isn't there?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. This again, once again, this is a pattern of behavior or an experience, I would say, that humanity has always experienced. And I'm glad you brought up faith healers, because that's also really big one. People don't talk about it as much today. I suppose it's not as big of a thing, but that was huge back in the day, and now we're seeing more of this in an online presence. And because it seems like the younger demographic, obviously younger, you're going to be more susceptible to these things, right? Being so much that we are so socially isolated and having access to these resources like the internet that proliferate these problems. I'm not surprised it's happening in a greater degree. I am not surprised that certain ideas, dangerous ideas, are spreading online as well, and just changing the overall political and social conversation that's happening in the nation. It's interesting to experience in real time, but I don't know exactly what the solutions would be, other than to, I suppose, change the outlook of culture and how we treat young men, or
Well, I don't think that's ever going to happen, Danielle, and I'll tell you why. Because because you know why? Because young men are motivated typically by one thing. That's young women.
Yes.
And so there's an incentive structure there that is not in place for men because it's not in women's interests to try and breed young, strong men necessarily as much as it
Right.
is to try and mate with strong men. But the problem is that because so many men want to be with one woman, the process of delineation that women undergo and elimination of the men that they choose to be superior mates it's a matter of tooth and claw, Daniela. We're talking about something primal here, where
Mhm.
this was a statistic that I got from Rollo Tomasi, and I haven't seen where he pulled this data from yet. So I will put an asterisk after this. But he said that the successful copulation rate thousands of years ago for human beings used to be something like 77 to 1, meaning that it used to be 77 women were successful reproducing to one man. And that in modern times, it's 7 women are successful reproducing to every one man. Now, do you understand the immediate implications of something like that?
Well, yeah, I would presume that that would be just the overall decline of society.
Well, actually, if you think about it, men are now more successful than they've ever been sexually to a degree, but it's still 7 women have a child for every one man who has a child. It used to be 77 to 1. Now it's 7 to 1 in terms of reproductive success, meaning that for every one man who has a child, 7 women have a child. What does that tell you?
Well, from what I understand, I mean, overall birth rates are declining severely, and I'm not surprised.
Correct. But here's the thing. The implications of that, Daniela, are that means that 7 women choose one man to have a child with overall, in terms of the overall statistics. I mean, I think women are going to be the last people that are going to be on board with the idea that one man should reproduce with one woman. It should be one man to one woman, that the statistics should be 1 to 1. But women have more reproductive options than men do.
Sure.
So what I'm really talking about here is that there are winners and losers in the war of the sexes, and it's 7 winners, 7 female winners to every 1 male winner. Are you? I mean, Daniela, we have to tell women to choose either to help these young men to give them the self-confidence that they need. I'm not suggesting that you just give them women. Obviously we can't do something like that. They used to, and it was 77 to 1. You had one king with a harem of 77 women. Now you've got 7 women choosing one baby daddy, right? And so unfortunately I think that the problem is, I don't know that it's apocalyptic or cataclysmic, but the secret to young men is sort of intertwined with the problem of young women. And I really don't know. I mean, Daniela, you're not going to date a beta. You're not going to date a loser. You're not going to go on a pity date with these guys, right? So, I mean, getting these men to build themselves up, they're looking for men like Andrew Tate, and they're looking for men who are strong like that because they see men like that who actually can get women, and they're saying to themselves, these are the steps that I have to take to get to where I'm one of the actual successful men who can reproduce, one of the 7 to 1 males. I don't know how we solve that problem, Daniela. It's a much bigger problem. It's an iceberg, tip of the iceberg problem, wouldn't you think?
Well, yes, of course. And I mean, women clearly, I would say, are the gatekeepers of obtaining sex, but it is true that they're also the most successful in the sexual market, I would say. But at the same time, I don't think the issue is as profound as how it's being articulated online, and that no men can ever get a date or get laid. There's certainly options and ways that they could do that. It's just that unfortunately, culturally, I think culturally we are discouraging that type of behavior from men. But in in actual fact and actual practice, it's clearly not impossible. It's just a matter of, I would say, reorienting the cultural lens, or at least explain. And again, I don't know how possible this is. I get you're probably right. It's probably impossible, and we're doomed, and humanity's entirely doomed. I'm trying to remain somewhat optimistic about this. I genuinely think that as birth rates continue to decline dramatically, it is becoming more and more of a talking point. It will take maybe a couple more decades. Perhaps it'll be too late, but I think that there will be, at least on the right wing, I'm seeing this becoming a major talking point, right? And I haven't heard
Natalism.
this exactly. So I think that there is um there is some room for improvement, and things will change. I don't know at what rate that will happen though. And it's a constellation of issues, or constellation of reasons. A lot of it is modernization, a lot of it, or modernization of society. A lot of it is women going to school and higher education when most people probably shouldn't get obtain higher education. I mean, there's a lot of reasons that's contributing to the low birth rate issue. A lot of it is media as well, and how they articulate the sexual dynamic. Unfortunately, it's on online spaces. But I think the more this becomes a talking point, the closer we are to finding a solution to it, hopefully. Fingers crossed, but I don't know. We'll see.
Daniela, I know you agree with me when it comes to the question of women in male spaces and men in female spaces. I know you believe that men should be able to have private clubs and have private institutions and golf clubs and areas where they can go where women aren't allowed. And I know you probably agree that women should not be horning themselves in these spaces where men are. Now, they've done so in large part because they think that, the key to the corporate boardroom was being a part of the male-only golf club where the business deals are being done. And you, as an accomplished, professional career woman, I'm sure would like to gain access to those places. But I mean, would you be willing to give up some of the privileges that feminism has won for women like yourself in order to benefit the overall well-being of men?
It depends. That's a pretty reductive view, I would say, because it depends on what kind of spaces we're talking about. In terms of like hobbies or in a matter of expressing yourself, there certainly should be male and female spaces. When it comes to major decision making in society, I think that's different. Major institutions in the formation of society, like politics, for instance, I don't think politics should be a male only space, right? I think that we have to approach these institutions with through a meritocracy, a real standard, and not try to impose these, like DEI, for instance, to force specific minorities or women into these spaces, into these major decision-making spaces where they don't belong. So when it comes to major decision-making institutions, I think that should be a co-ed situation. But if we're talking about like specific clubs or hobbies or,
So Danielle, I'm
yeah.
talking about male-only clubs, like golf clubs and places that used to exist, that are now criminalized, right? They have to include women.
Oh, yeah.
And in those places, that's where the business deals for the local, widget factory are being done, and they don't want women at that place. You think
That's fine.
that's totally fine
Yeah.
for you? Okay.
If it's, let's say, like theoretically, it's just a golf club, right? That's what it's meant to do. If there's like major decision-making processes that happen there that affect community afterwards, that's fine. The same can be done in a knitting club that is a woman only, right? I'm talking about in the actual environment. Like if it's just a club, there should be, sex-specific areas like that. But when it comes to, once again, major institutions like running for office, right? That's different. That should be a completely different situation. So yeah, it's articulating which space we're talking about.
It's a challenge because, Daniela, when people get used to special treatment, equality feels like discrimination. It feels like, and what I see in our modern society is that equality for the modern Western woman would actually be a step down. They would lose access to certain areas. They would lose certain privileges that they've grown to expect if they were to lose access to spaces where men can go, do manly things, say manly things, act like men, and not have to feel as if we have to submit ourselves to the judgment or the longhousing, if you will, by women. That's not going to necessarily be to women's benefit, but it will be to men's benefit, right? So there are some things that are a zero-sum game. They don't all have to be, but at some point, some things are a zero-sum game. You win, I lose, I win, you lose to an extent. And so the problem, I think, is that in the situation you're talking about clubs, most women don't agree with you, Daniela, about the clubs.
That's not news to me.
Yes.
Yeah, I have a lot of men and women that don't agree with me on a lot of things.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that's the case, but
Yeah.
the men who would disagree with you on something like that aren't men in the sense like you and I are talking about in terms of the healthy types of males that we want to see young men model themselves after. It's the Democratic Party, which is the party of women and the men who are afraid of those women, as Scott Adams rightfully said. So I think that, first of all, having these conversations is the first step on the road to recovery, right?
Yes.
Hopefully this leads to a higher birth rate somehow for me, for you, and for everybody who's listening to this show. So if we can't talk about these issues like in the United Kingdom, then we're going to be in deep shit. And so thankfully, we still have at least some semblance of free speech here on the Wake Up America show.
Thank God.
You're going to have your own show coming up soon, which I'm sure will be an even bigger success than this show, Daniela, because I know people really love your commentary when you're here on the show. I'm looking forward to releasing more information to the audience. I haven't told everybody yet the title, which I think is super sexy and cool, and everybody's going to love it, and the theme and everything that's going to be coming out here very soon. So Daniela, before we let you go today, we did go a little bit longer than normal. Is there anything else that you want to say or a point that you'd like to make that perhaps we missed? Now's your chance.
Yes, I think that we should treat young men appropriately. That's all I'm going to say. I think we pretty much articulated everything, Austin. But yeah, treat young men as they should be treated, and that is embracing their internal masculine drive, as you have been mentioning. And not to discourage that, but I'm pretty sure everyone watching this show has already agreed with me on that anyway. So I suppose it would be rather repetitive to mention, but I will end on this note, like I always end, Austin, is that please follow me on social media. It's at Pensec Daniela on Twitter and official Daniela Pensec on Instagram. And yes, I will be getting my own show. I'm very excited. And if you liked the conversations I just had, then oh boy, just stand by. You're going to really enjoy my show. So yeah, we're going to touch on a lot of issues. And I will be using terms like longhouse quite a bit. So be prepared for that.
Be prepared. It's big brain time all the time on Daniela Pensac's brand new show coming this fall on the For Liberty Network. Let's give it up. Daniela, thanks so much. Appreciate you getting up early, being so generous with your time, and we'll talk real soon.
Yeah. Thank you, Austin.
Thank you. Another round of applause. Great show. Totally went over. Didn't mean to. Sorry, guys. I don't like to monopolize your time past 9 a.m. It's 9:01. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. If you joined us today for the very first time, click the like button on the feed and then click the follow button as well on Rumble before you leave. We had a lot of people joining us over on X.com as well. Yesterday's show had like 80,000 views on X. I admit I spent a little money on advertising to it, but I think, if you want to be the big guys, you got to spend a little bit of money. You want to make money, you got to spend money. 229 people joining us live on rumble.com. Can we get a like before you leave? I'd love to earn at least 50% likes. It's hard. I know people, they don't take the time out of their busy day, but you really are making a big impact on the growth of the Wake Up America show and the For Liberty Network when you do things like that. We've got 48 likes and 233 people watching live. Come on, guys, give us that like. And again, if it is your first time watching the Wake Up America show, click the follow button as well on the stream. It's the AP for Liberty channel here on Rumble. I'm AP for Liberty everywhere, so click the follow button. Come back and join us again tomorrow. The show is Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Central, typically. I don't normally go over, but I'd love to have you be a regular guest. Come back and join us tomorrow. Freedom Family Friday means my sweet, sweet wife, Stephanie, will be joining us here. And because we don't have a babysitter or somebody else, the baby will be in the studio as well, hanging out in the corner, hopefully sleeping for the whole show, but we shall see. Maybe you'll get another bonus baby time tomorrow. Let's see you guys here tomorrow morning on the Wake Up America show on the For Liberty Network. Have a great day, guys.
Welcome to the Wake Up America show's bonus content. Let's look at a big news story you might not have heard. After thousands of years offer a distinctive mix of ages, aiding in the identification process. Clark's analysis of zircon, apatite, and rutile minerals within the stone, using uranium to lead dating, showed that the stone's grains range from 500 million to 3 billion years old. This further confirmed its origins in northeast Scotland's Orcadian Basin. The nearest matching Old Red Sandstone to Stonehenge is near Inverness, 750 kilometers away, with the furthest in the Shetland Islands, up to 1,000 kilometers away. Sea transport seems the most plausible explanation for its journey. Glacial movement is unlikely to have transported the stone southward, as evidence indicates northward ice flow during the last glacial period. The reason for bringing the altar stone such a long distance remains a mystery. David Nash from the University of Brighton, whose team identified the Sarson's source, praises the rigor of Clark's team's work. He acknowledges the difficulty of pinpointing the exact source within the extensive Orcadian Basin. Locating the precise origin of the altar stone is a significant challenge due to the vast area and depth of the Orcadian Basin. Nash compares this to the easier task of tracing the Sarsons, which had fewer potential sources. Genetic studies reveal that the original builders of Stonehenge were largely replaced by a new wave of migrants around 4,000 years ago. This population shift may be linked to a plague pandemic that devastated much of Europe's population. The discovery of the altar stone's origins provides a deeper understanding of Neolithic society's connectivity and the monumental effort involved in the construction of Stonehenge. The reasons behind such